John. And we'll just start with Travis Etienne was one of the breakouts last year, one of the biggest beneficiaries of the Jaguars moving on from Urban Meyer, who seemed to think Travis Etienne was a pass catcher. And just so many touches last year, seemingly maybe more than they wanted him to handle. And just how do you see Travis Etienne's workload comparing to last year? And just how big of a threat is third-round pick Tank Bigsby? We talk about Tank Bigsby. Like sometimes Denny and I are like, what round is he drafted in? It's like, oh, it's the third. Wow, that's like pretty serious actually. And how concerning is this for Travis Etienne?
Yeah, I really don't think it's overly concerning. I think, it's kind of crazy when you hear Jaguars coaches, especially Doug Peterson, like, at the end of OTAs, this year, and then at the combine, earlier this year, he basically said, Travis had an okay season, but he can be a lot better. Like there were a lot of plays he missed, a lot of holes he missed. And you look up and he had, whatever it is, 1,400 yards from scrimmage. Like if that's probably like the lower outcome of what he can do, I mean, I think that's a good sign for him. I really don't think Tank's going to be a giant threat to him in terms of touches right now. Maybe obviously goal line touches are super important. So maybe, the Jaguars' short yardage running game isn't improving early on in the season. I think Doug Peterson has shown that, he'll be quick to make a switch. So maybe Tank gets some goal line carries if things don't go good for Etienne early on. But overall, I think Etienne, like I don't think there's a major threat to him for carries. And I really think the worst thing to ever happen to like the idea of Etienne as a player is for Urban Meyer to, talk about him publicly.
I know. It color the perception forever.
Exactly.
Quite literally.
It literally calls him a wide receiver. And, I remember one of the first times Etienne ever talked to the Jaguars media, he literally said, he's like, yeah, the only routes I've ever ran are screens and, dump offs. He's like, and you look back at it as Clemson,
If you watch the Clemson Tigers, I'm not sure wide receiver would have come to mind.
Exactly. Like he made big plays as a receiver, but if you look back at it, a lot of it was screen plays. And that just, doesn't directly translate. So I think that really hurt the perception of him because I really think this is an offense overall that, like, it doesn't even want to throw to the running back that much. And then you add Etienne, who isn't even that great of a pass catcher, and it's kind of a perfect storm for him not to put up big numbers that way.
So, okay, no panicking on Etienne. Denny has a question about an area where there's some hype and also some panic.
Right. So we're introducing Calvin Ridley into the pass-catching pecking order this year in Jacksonville. Last year, it was a pretty flat target distribution among the main pass catchers in this offense. Christian Kirk had a 23% target share, Zay Jones 22%, Evan Ingram 17%. So is Calvin Ridley the like unquestioned number one alpha in this offense? And if so, which of the three guys I mentioned, Ingram, Kirk, and Jones, which of them loses out?
I'm not sure I'd say he's like the unquestioned alpha because, like, as cliche as it is, I do think Lawrence having a year of experience where Kirk will mean something, at least early on in the season, because, I mean, he'll be the first to tell you. It basically took him a full year to, get used to the way Kirk likes to run routes, how he likes to win against coverages. So it does take time for that new relationship. But I also, Ridley, to me, looked like the most impressive receiver they had, at OTAs. And he's still not, they're not really pushing him 100% during the offseason just because obviously he hasn't played football in 2 years. You don't want to get him out there and do a million things and, risk potential injuries. But so I do think he'll be the alpha of the offense. Like he'll be the X factor, but I don't think they have an offense that's structured for like one guy to, hog the targets every week. I think there'll be certain weeks where like Zay Jones will randomly, go off. Like that weird 3 touchdown game last year. I think like
it always feels that's always Zay Jones has never had someone describe one of his games without the word random attached to it.
Exactly. And I mean, you look back at Zay Jones last year and it's the most like, oh, that guy had 100-something target season.
He had 121 targets. I actually have it on my show sheet because it seemed hard to believe.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if anybody's targets are going to be kind of hurt, it'd probably be his. But I do think there'll be weeks where like Christian Kirk, is the focal point. Zay Jones is, Evan Ingram is.